Um, Obviously, tough to get back into it. I mean, we all know losing stinks, and so I think the best thing for us was, at least for me, was Sunday. To be able to get ourselves back in here. Yes, it happens faster, and to get our players back in here to go through what it is that what happened and watch the game film, and then go out there on the practice field and actually sweat a little bit. To get that taste out of your mouth, but it's tough. It's difficult. I think that all of us, we talked about it, on Sunday as well. There was an expectation. There is an expectation, and unfortunately, we're not in a position that right now meets those expectations. But we can't allow that to stop us from growing and doing the things we got to continue to do. So, we said last week, flush it and then move on. And I thought our guys did a good job of it. We just, we weren't able to, get the job done this past weekend. So we've got to do the same thing. We've got to look at it. We've got to move forward, and we can't dwell upon the past. But we got to find ways to continue to move forward. We got to find ways to continue to get our best 11 guys on the field at one time. And then we ultimately got to find ways to win football games. So this is another great opportunity for us this week. But we got to have a great week of practice. Be honest with you, I thought, and I said this morning on the radio, Sunday might have been our best Sunday. I don't know why, but I thought those guys came out there, a lot of guys, limping and on an injury report, but yet then they go out there and do what you ask them to do, run around, sweat a little bit, compete a little bit, have a little bit of fun, in the midst of all the things that are going on, and they did. So I trust that this is the attitude that these guys have. Unfortunately, they've been through some adversity, obviously, last year, and they've handled it pretty well. And they came out on Sunday and handled it really well. So I'm excited about that and about moving forward and getting ourselves another opportunity to get this thing on the right track.
Luke, the Northwestern team you play this week, if you look at their stats, nothing really jumps out at you. But they've got a guy who was thrust into a difficult position, their head coach.
Yeah.
Head coach. What have you guys seen? Have you looked at their tape that has allowed them to win some games like Minnesota and battle Iowa, right? Pretty much the last.
Minnesota, Maryland. They got a lot of seniors, and I think you can look across the board and you see graduated senior, 5th-year senior, 6th-year guy. You can see that, yes, there's been some things that have happened and rattled them, but they've come together. I think they lost only a few guys in the midst of all the things that happened, and you see those teams that are built from within and built the right way. And what that means is sometimes down the stretch, they've gotten better. They're a little better than what they were maybe at the beginning of the year in the midst of all the stuff that was going on. You're right. There's some things that don't jump out of it. Just like, you look at Iowa, there's some things that don't jump out of it other than, their ability to win football games. And so I think the Northwestern has put themselves in a good position pretty much every week to have an opportunity chance. And they're smart. They play to their strengths. They don't beat themselves. And they've got a few more, guys and playmakers than maybe people recognized, I think, from the get-go. And that's a lot of the experience that they've got.
Luke, when you watch yourself and kind of self-scout over the last few weeks, do you feel like the offense...
Watch myself or the actual team? Okay. So I tried to watch myself.
Do you feel like the offense has done enough to make defenses defend the whole field the last few weeks?
No, I don't think... obviously we haven't done a good enough job. Making guys defend the whole field, sometimes just spreading the field doesn't do that. You got to have the ability to, get the ball out there and make some plays, even to take some shots. And I think that's where, there's a balance. You're trying to figure out how do we make people play us more honest. And sometimes that is, what we've said is using 53 1/3 wide, but also being able to get the ball down the field. And just haven't found ways to create some of those plays down the field. Especially this past week. We made a couple for, probably the first time in a while that we made obviously Bryson made one underneath and then turned it into a longer play, which is just something we haven't done enough of. But we got to find ways to continue to make people play us honest and defend the whole field, both laterally and vertically.
Jesse, you mentioned at the Indiana game that as a coach, you have to help find ways to get this team over the hump. I imagine it's probably tough in the middle of the season to be reflective and think about that.
I don't reflect a lot anyway, but yes.
Is there anything that has stood out to you, you feel like you could have done differently to get the team in a better position at this point, or anything you think you can do differently, the last 3 games?
I don't know. I mean, obviously you go back and you just say situations, whether it's, hey, we got to just find a way to win, kick the field goal, be a little bit more conservative. Those are things on me. But in the big picture, in the whole, I think ultimately, you got to make sure you got enough guys prepared. And when things have happened, whether, we've lost a couple tailbacks, and when things have happened, maybe we weren't built and prepared well enough for some of those other guys to go into the ball game. Is that done through, the off season? Is that done through recruiting? I mean, I also think it's done in fall camp. And as I look back, maybe that's where we didn't go live in enough situations to make sure that some of those younger guys or other guys are battle tested, that when they do go into the game. And there's been many years, spring football in particular, that we've made quarterbacks live, not maybe the starter, but a lot of times the 2 and the 3. And where you hold your breath sometimes that's a really good situations to find out, put those guys in some of those positions, to play in live action, as well as running backs and a lot of others. So that might be the one thing that right now I'm kind of looking at to say, with some of the guys that don't have as much experience that are playing for us, maybe in the spring we didn't do a good enough job at, putting them in live situations with our quarterbacks or running backs, or we didn't do a good enough job of that as well in fall camp.
Luke, Bryson Green had 4 catches for 96 yards, 6 targets in the first half, only 1 target in the second half. What did you like early on from the looks that he provided, and what happened?
Well, I think most importantly, Bryson's one of those guys, I would say, who's your tough guys, who's your foxhole guys. I mean, there's no doubt that when the going gets tough, that Bryson's going to be right there. I mean, he's only been here for 9 months, 8 months, whatever it is, but from the day he walked in the door, when I met his dad, knowing the military background, all the things, walking away from his twin brother that was, at Oklahoma State to come here, you knew he had something deep down inside, a little bit of a grit, a toughness that you love. And, you're starting to see that as it gets down the wire here, that, those guys that, can battle and, and not let the emotions and the ups and the downs affect them, but make them only stronger. He's that guy that I would say that's who he is, and that's what he's starting to show.
Jesse, we didn't have a chance to watch him preseason trench because he was hurt, but it looks like he's worked his way up. I think he got a couple of snaps on the kick return.
Yeah, he was off returner on the kickoff return.
Yeah. What have you seen from him that's allowed him to get into that spot? What do you think he can provide him?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's hard sometimes. You get into that latter half of the year, and the guy, not only has he not played in games, he missed all of camp pretty much. He missed all of pre. I mean, just he missed the first 5 weeks with a foot where he really couldn't do anything, and so then the last 4 weeks you kind of get him back, and you're trying to get him in some rhythm, and you're just trying to find places. Like, he was real close to being on the kickoff team, but you're just like, God, I love the kid, and I love his attitude and his toughness and things like that. But, it's just you've never put him in one of those situations. You've never, stuck him in there. And, I mean, be the first time in this situation. So it's been a little bit harder to get him in some of those situations. I think down the stretch he's going to have an opportunity, whether it's on special teams or finding ways to play a little bit more offensively. But he's got to be able to grasp the big picture of those things as you get into that week 7 and 8, but there's no doubt that, like we said about Bryson, you find out especially towards the end of the year, those guys that are just mentally built a little bit different, and guys got that toughness to them that we're going to need.
Cool. Luke, obviously the quarterback mobility and running into the ball, especially on those option keepers, was a big factor for your offense early on. Was there any thought in the last few weeks of putting in maybe a Miles or a Nick to add some of that mobility, or how do you feel like you can? Yeah,
I mean, those are thoughts, and but we've got to go with what we believe is the best way for us to win the football game. And right now, that we don't believe that that's the way to do it. But as we continue to move forward, we might have to find some other ways. Even if they're little packages, even if they're just opportunities for those guys. But you also got to make sure you can take care of the football. And I think just like, I know it's different, we're talking about Tretch in a different position, but you throw, another guy or two in there at quarterback position that has taken 0 snaps in your last 3 weeks of the season. Boy, there's a lot lot of tough things, just trust-wise and taking care of the football and not putting yourself in a really bad situation. But I think that's the challenge for us as we move down the stretch, and that's the challenge I've had a little bit for the offense is, based on some of the things we've got, we might have to be a little bit more creative and find ways to get some of the guys that can make some plays on the field, whether that's with their arm or with their feet.
Last week, at this day, you said that at Sunday's practice that the injured guys didn't do much at all, meaning Braylon and Chim. Did they do any more yesterday? And I know you got Tuesday and Wednesday with the heavy practices, but do you have any idea?
Oh, Chim ran around.
Okay.
He ran around. He ran around. He warmed up last Saturday as well, and that doesn't always mean a whole lot, It means that their minds are in the right place, their heads are in the right place. It means they are doing everything they want to be out there. But it was similar. I mean, you had some guys that were just dinged up from the game. The Will Paulings of the world that played a lot. The Jake Cheneys that ended up played a ton obviously, and then got dinged up. They go out there on a Sunday and give it everything they've got, and still don't feel great. Jim's the same way, and some of those guys. But it's hard to tell, at the pace at which you are on a Sunday that what does that translate to on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and even push it through to a Saturday. So I wish I knew more.
Go ahead. Luke, last 3 games, Braden Mock's thrown the ball over 39 times at least in each game, completed just under 50% of his passes. Is that the situation? I know situational football has caused you guys to play from behind, but is that the situation you envision for him in his first 3 starts?
I'm not sure what you're asking, but again, we want balance, regardless of who's at the quarterback position. We've got to do a better job at running the football. And, the first half last week, we did not. I mean, I think we ended up with 20-some yards rushing. So sometimes you got to put yourself in a situation where, okay, now what do we have to do to loosen some of this up? And, no matter what, no matter's in their corner, if we don't have balance, it's going to be tough for us. I just don't think that, I told these guys this on Sunday, it's just not like we're just going to, take shots on everybody. We're just going to create this, momentum and this energy. Like, we've got to find ways to be strategic with the things that we're doing. We've got to have balance so we can keep the defenses in particular when we're on offense, not knowing exactly what's going on, meaning, okay, hey, they become a pass-happy team or they become a run-happy team. For us to be successful down the stretch, there's got to be a balance to what we're doing, throwing, running, but also in finding ways to create yardage and plays within that. So it's not always, hey, we want 50% runs and 50% passes, but you want the majority of the balance being in the yardage that you can create. So that makes it harder on offenses and defenses when it's not just they've run the ball 42 times, but all of a sudden, they've run the ball 14 times, but they've got 128 yards rushing. So those are what I think the balance makes it much more difficult to play, and that's kind of where we're not right now.
Mark. Riley Nowakowski's worked his way into the tight end rotation since he's come back from injury. I'm wondering if, I don't know if he brings a unique skill set to that group, some unique traits that maybe help, him getting playing time.
No. I mean, Riley was going to get a lot of playing time. Obviously, he got hurt there at the end of camp and missed the first 4 or 5 weeks. And then the next couple weeks is just getting back into shape and, not putting his foot in a position where if you rep him too much. I think what you saw Saturday from Riley is, he's got a chance to make some plays. And he was a guy that got the ball in his hand and looked physical and broke a tackle or two and turned an 8 or 10 yard play into a 20, 25 yard play. And that's what we're trying to find. That's what we're looking for, right? Regardless if it's at the tight end position, at the wide receiver position, at the tailback position, that, you can give guys opportunities, get them to that second level, get them 4 or 5 yards, and then what can we do from there? Because the game is too hard to methodically not be able to create some explosive plays. And so I believe that he's done a really good job with the ball in his hand, in particular this past week. So he's seen a lot of action. He's going to continue to see more. But I think what we got to try to do is give him the ball maybe a few more times, because that's where he has shown up to do, I think a better job than maybe some others.
Luke, is Tanner Marca at the point that he's practicing? You saw him in the video that got posted last week, and obviously he warmed up on Saturday, but where is he at in terms of the recovery?
Yeah, he warmed up last Saturday, but it was, hey, he's a possibility. He's an emergency maybe, but, they're asking you that before the game because you got a 2 hour before, you got a report, and I'm like, look, I don't think he's going to play. Same with Bray. But we put him on there as questionable only because, of situational stuff, but not trying to hide anything. So it's similar. I mean, when they can warm up, it's a start, but does that really mean they can actually take you out there and put you in the best position to win a football game? And so sometimes you just, those are some instincts that you got to get a feel for to say, okay, now we're in a tight situation, but we also can't put somebody in there that can't protect himself and doesn't give us the best opportunity.
Jesse, it can obviously be tough sometimes for players when they're going through a season and they're struggling, and maybe it's not meeting what they thought it would be at the start of the year. You mentioned Sunday was a very good day for them.
Which good day for me, but because of the way they did things.
How they responded.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most important message you want to relay to these guys at this stage of the year? Things like
Well, the great thing that we got is we got guys with resiliency. We got guys that it might be hard to even tell if they're not where they expected themselves to be as a team, and that's just the character of the guys that we've got. I mean, that's what I mean by Sunday. Like, they went out there, they did the things you asked them to do, they had energy, and you're like, okay, we got to build upon those things. What I laid into a little bit after the game was something that I feel like we just, at times it's okay to be pissed. At times it's okay to be a little bit more emotional at some of the situations that you don't love. But I think there's a balance. And so, there's that fine line that, these guys don't get rattled. And I think that's a great thing. Whether it's defensively, the first drive, you give up, you go down, they give them a touchdown. They come off the side, they're not rattled. I've been someplace before at times where all of a sudden that's like you can see the unraveling in front of you. And so there's things to build from that these guys are, really got a resiliency. They got a calmness to them. In some ways, sometimes I'm like, well, let's lose a little bit of the calmness and let's, get a little bit more of the passion and energy. But that's where I think that balance comes, and they can handle pretty much anything we throw at them.